We're gonna start, and I'm not gonna use the mic, so I'll just have to yell. Thank you all for coming to our meeting at the Holiday Community Club. As always, we urge you to join because we do a lot of good stuff and it helps to have members. And we also pass the hat for the food bank every month for the Bitter Lake Food Bank. So I'll just pass that around. And a lot of people don't have money because they're walking. All right. All right. My name is Shawn MacPherson. I am the vice president of the club and kind of a lifelong Howler Laker. So that's the subject tonight is the history of Howler Lake. I should put my other glasses on. So a little bit about myself. My grandfather bought our lot in 1918 and we're on 122nd. And he started a real estate company in 1932. That he ran, and then when my dad and uncle came home from the war, they ran it. My dad died in 88. My brothers and I bought my uncle out 90, and then we ran it. And now my son Kyle, or who's here tonight, is running it from 2023. So that's kind of my background, and we'll do a little bit of real estate stuff. How the whole Howler Lake thing got started was the Homestead Act of 1862. Which Abraham Lincoln signed during the Civil War to expand westward motion expansion through the United States. And what you had to do was go in Washington, go to the land office in Olympia, pick out your plot, pay $10, and this is my favorite, a $2 commission to the land office. So, and you got 160 acres. Wow. Yeah. With for free, but you're $10. You had to live on it for 5 years. You had to, at least, you didn't have to be a man, which I was surprised. You could be a woman. And you didn't have to be a citizen, but you had to intend to become a citizen. You could be an immigrant. And a man named John Welsh from England claimed Ashwood, First Northeast, 130th and 120th. So that's a big chunk with the lake in the middle, and they called it Welsh Lake. Wow. So he kind of did his thing, and I'm going to turn the lights on. He did his thing until 1905, and in 1905, Theodore Heller bought Welsh's claim and renamed the lake Howler Lake, and here we are today. That's hard to read. I go, oh, that's what happened. Well, certainly. So the Homestead Act got us going. How's that one? That's good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can you see those? Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm going to go by in chronological order that I can tell from my research on my phone which house was built first. There probably were some that are no longer standing, that may be older, but there's no evidence of them now. So the very first house on the lake. Yeah, hold on. Okay. On the acre lots that Theodore Heller platted were 35 feet at the lake, and they were pies, and they were 100 feet at the road. So that was most, and there are some that are a little different because of the shape and everything. But basically, the lots around the lake were all acres, with 35 up to 100. So the very first house on the lake that's still there is this one on Densmore, and it was built 1907. That's what it looked like when they bought it. Yeah. This is what it looks like today. They've done a very nice job. Yeah, very nice job. That's Kim. Yeah. And now house number 2 is right across from the club. And this is now it's Canals. Is that right, Rita? Yeah, Canals. And it obviously most of these have been remodeled to some extent, but that was 1950. And then they sold their lot to the people that are where Neiman's are now. So the next house after this one, that's the Brown's house, and that's on Densmore, and about 12522. That was he did also. That's a remodel, but they had a lovely 2-acre piece, and the grandsons are living there now. Naeem is in this house, and then his brother Bassett built next door, kind of a fancy, right next door, and that's on 125th. The next one. This is Zima's, and that is 1916. And it is on Dansmore on the other side of the road, right as you come around the corner. And that's a cute little house. Okay, the next one, this is what I call the Balkan House, because that's when we lived in when I was in high school. That's the corner of Meridian and 128 behind the fence. It was Standard Eason, and now it's somebody.
Since that's the house they chose a picture of for the news.
No, that's the next one. Okay, that's a different one, Peter, but we'll get there. So, this is the Neiman's house, which was built in 1917. This is an old picture of the front porch. Okay, and the next one. That's how it looks today.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much the same. And that is one of the last street to lake lots that we have on the lake. It's still, they have the whole piece.
Where's that one?
That lot is right across the street from the club. It's 12560 Dinsmore.
But you don't see that from the street.
Well, but this is the lakeside. This is the lakeside of that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This is John Neiman, who's in the back row. And there he is. And there's nothing there, but across, you can see that white thing is the windmill. And the windmill was kind of everybody's, North Star for a long time. It was iconic for the way. Okay. Yeah. And that is a picture of the windmill from the back. More recently, but it's kind of seemed to go away in about 2015.
Yeah.
And then this is another windmill. That's what it looked like when you were kids. It was cool, and it probably worked at one time.
No, it didn't.
Okay. All right, and this is, this was Ramsdale, this was 1918, and this is on Dansmore, no, this is on Corliss, 12572 Corliss as you come around the corner. On that side of the street. And then this next house was the Tea Garden House, and that is kind of next door to where I am now. It was Tea Gardens, and then it was Wells and Holmstrom's and Place. So that was built 1918 also. And then in 1919, this is the MacPherson house. This is the house my grandpa built. And the current resident is here, Natalie, who lives there still in the house. That's what it looks like now from the lakeside looking back. And that's what it looked like in probably 1930, Mary, do you think? My cousin Mary's here, who's my double cousin. My dad and his sister married my mother and her brother. So we had two brother and sister, married brother and sister, and we grew up on this piece of property with us. And then my dad in 1950, when he married my mom, he told his mother, "I'm taking the lot in front of your house." And my uncle was really mad. And built a house, and then Mary's mother in 56 built the house up at the road. So we had a compound that we grew up on with our kids, ours at the lake, and then my grandma, and then my cousins at the road, and it was magical. We had chickens, we had an orchard, we had raspberries, apples, a football field. It was really, it was super cool. Yeah. So that was 1919. That's the view from the house to the lake, probably in the 30s. And this would be my driveway. And our house is tucked in up here. The good thing is he made it really skinny so we wouldn't block the view. So my house is never wider than 22 feet anywhere. Really, really thin. And this is a house. This is over on Corliss, and most of these were the original house on the lot. And then as they needed money or whatever, then they sold off. So most of this was 1919, and it's on 12567 Corliss, and there are probably 6 houses on that driveway now, most of them from the 60s. So this is, everybody knows that one. This was, I'm going to call it Brainerd because that's who owned it when I was a kid. It was very cool. It's big. It's 3,000 square feet. 1920. Sorry. No, at a basement. And the guy, Brainerd, had the Grosvenor Lounge downtown Seattle. Yeah. So it had the coolest basement you've ever seen. It was like a bar, and it had curved glass block walls. It's just really, really cool. The basement was super cool. But Jeff Wilson, whose parent, who grew up on the lake, bought this piece. And he built himself a house in front of it for his kids, so he's also second generation growing up on the lake. But that's a very cool house. Very cool. Now, this is right across from the club. This is Cindy and Marvin, and that's 1920. Oh,
Sorry, guys.
oh, okay. Okay, that's Cindy. All right. All right. Okay, so. And then this is I'm going to call it the Quisenberry House. This is where Howler Lake Estates are now. That was the one house on the whole 2-acre piece. And it was built in 1920. It was on 2 acres. It sat right in the middle. The Quisenberry boys were wild when I was in high school, so we knew who they were. And then another guy lived in it for a while, and then he ended up selling to a guy named Byron Weatherbolt, who was a builder, who then built those beautiful houses that are Howler Lake Estates. So I think these Karens are 3 on the lake and three in the back. So the 3 lake houses, and then the 3 back houses have views of the lake, and it's beautiful. He did a really nice job.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It's on 128, and let's see.
Oh,
2155. Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
And there's a gate,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful. It's really nice.
They're the rich people that took the lounge doors. Yeah,
They did what?
they got rid of their lawn furniture and we took it.
Okay.
It's number-
Oh, good. Listen,
Yeah.
very good.
For that next week.
Okay, and then, so that's where Howler Lake Estates is now. All right, this is Susan Durkee and Rick Beebe, and that was built in 1921. And the Holmstroms lived in that. This is what happened on the lake. The Holmstroms lived in it. Then they bought the house next door. He actually built his house for his mother behind him. Then he bought the house next door. Then he built in front of the house next door, and he sold off the lots, and he lived there for a long time. So, but you're the 3rd buyer after Holmstroms, I think.
Really, I don't know about that, but I do know that when we first moved in, this guy in his 80s came down to see us. He said he was a little boy living in that house and he went swimming in the lake. His grandfather's diamond ring that he had given him came off.
Oh.
So look for the ring.
Was he a big guy?
Down there,
Yes.
there are
Yeah,
sunglasses.
that might have been John.
Sailboat, yeah, I know where that one is.
Yeah. So
Watch the course.
1921, and then this one, it may be 21, it may be 31, you get different things. That's right around the corner as you go around right here.
Yeah.
And that may still be a street to lake piece also, but it's pretty scrubby down there. It's not really great lake.
Pretty skinny.
Oh, it's skinny. And then there's another one next to it that's really skinny. That's the Airbnb, but I didn't get that one. So that's questionable. This is across from Ramsdell's over on Corliss, and that was 1920. And that's, yeah, they did a lot of work on that. It's really cute. Yeah. Really cute, but it has the steepest staircase going upstairs I've ever seen. It's not a staircase, it's a ladder. And it's so narrow that it's like an oar where one sticks out and then they're offset because that's quite a climb to get up there, but it's beautiful. They've done a nice job. Okay, this is Rick Barrett's house, which is on 122nd, and he had that whole piece at one time, and his mother lived there. The front house was built in 22, and the back house was built in 1950. It's right on 122nd.
That's where Barbara is, right?
Yeah, right where Margaret Johnson is, across from my driveway.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh.
Is that the wildlife refuge?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the wildlife refuge. That's right. So the next one is Tricia's house. And that's right as you come around the corner from Corliss to 122nd. That sits back, and that's
Sounds like you walked by these homes.
If anybody doesn't recognize me, normally I'm wearing a green hat and sunglasses. Yeah. We know. So that is, and that was 22.
Okay.
And then this is AJ's house. It's our former president. That's on Densmore, and that's 1922.
You
Right.
see the skeleton she has in her private.
Oh, she's got her skeleton. She's into her house. She's into the Halloween decorations and all the event decoration. This is Hardin's. Now, this one was Reynolds forever and ever and ever. It's a beautiful big piece
122nd.
on 122nd, across from the church and down a little bit. So Reynolds was there forever. And then they sold it. I'm just gonna throw out a little bit of real estate stuff. In 1988, the Reynolds sold it for 185,000. And 2006, the current owner bought it for 785,000. It just went on the market at 2.8 million and went pending in 3 days. But we don't, it hasn't closed yet, so we don't know, but it's, you probably are gonna see a lot more construction on that.
Is that multiple lots?
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
it's huge. What is about 33,000 square
Yes,
feet?
it's three-quarters of an acre and the house is dead flush in the middle, which gives you lots of options to use.
Okay.
It'll be a village.
It'll be a village. And they did carve off one lot.
I
and
hope
put
they
a
aren't
house.
going to.
They're gonna do something. You know, they
Yeah,
are.
so.
Okay.
This is a cute little house over on, right on the corner of Corliss and 128. And that was the anchor piece on that lot. And then in the 1960s, 61, the main house was built 65, which is the brick house at the bottom. And then the next house was 61 and 61. So they just, at the top house. So that's what happened. The main house sold off the lots. So that, but it's very cute. This is the church, the office behind the church, and it's rather fancy. And I asked the church to get me information, they certainly didn't, so it's either built, the records say 32, the church guy said 22, somewhere in there, but somehow they got 5 acres. And their website said they joined in with another church from Oak Lake and they bought it, but I heard that somebody donated it, but I don't know. So they still have a really nice piece and 5 acres.
Yeah.
So there's our club. And we bought the land for this club in 1923 for $800. $100 down and $25 a month at 3%. And we have an acre. And keep going. Yeah. This is, you can't really see that, but that's the contract. That was a contract. I have the piece of paper. Anyone who's bought a house in the last 20 years knows it's 20 pieces of paper. This is a happy sheet. $175. They put some money down and they paid, when they put it in I think that they paid the taxes, it was $8.
Yeah.
So there we go. And then, okay, next. Yeah,
Oh, what? Oh.
the next one actually shows a piece of paper. It's a, yeah, okay. Randy Hartness, who's not here tonight, did a beautiful job with our archives, and he got all this archival stuff together. And it's a little article in the paper that says the Howler Lake Community Club was building an $8,000 building. Well, this building is 8,000 square feet. So that's $1 a foot. But as all my rule of thumb for real projects is, it ended up being 12,000 because it's always twice as long and half again as much as you want to pay. And that was even true in 1924, which is really pretty amazing. We could do it for 100 a foot. I'm hearing people in LA that in the fire center are quoting 1,000 square foot. Now there you go. Where's the $8,000 clubhouse to be constructed? That's really fun. Okay, this is across the street. It is the old store. It was 12579 Densmore, that's us. It's 1544 North 128th Street. And it's the green and blue right across the street. But it was the best grocery store when we were kids. It was Bud's Howler Lake Market. And it was nice. And they had a meat market and they had a butcher. And you'd go in there and like buy steaks and they were beautiful. It was really, really a store. And it was super cool. And now it's a duplex.
I hope we're not gonna do more of that.
This is this is across the street. That's Wesley's little house. He was a cool kid. That is 1730 North 128. That's 1924. And yeah, and it's beautiful lot, but same thing, they sold off a lot next door and built a skinny house, you know. But it's that was a cool house. This is the house that Hayden lives in now. And it is, 1748 North 128, and that's a big lot. That's probably the last big lot on the lake. And I bet your mom gets a ton of mail and phone calls
Oh, yes, many.
all the time from people who want to buy it.
This is on the.
This is on the
North side.
the north side of 128, 1748.
Do you know how big that was originally?
I don't know the whole piece, no, but it's still really big. You got 2 acres there, maybe?
Full acre.
A full acre, yeah, I mean, that's a really nice,
The eastward third of the parcel, in the nineties, and we were able to reacquire it, so it's
Okay.
back to a unified acre.
1750 is technically all.
okay, and then the yellow house next to them actually was a move from, it was back here where they put in the retention pond.
Yeah.
So they picked it up and moved it over there, and the city had to buy them the lot. And then as I walked by, there was a guy sitting in a car. Every time I went by, and finally I knocked on the window and I said, "Why are you sitting in the car here all the time?" He said, "Because we agreed if they moved their house here, we would guard it, because that's when that serial arsonist just lighting things on fire." And his name Keller, Brad Keller, something like that, you know, it was a ways back. But he was lighting things on fire, so the people that were moving their house made the city guard their house 24/7. This is Nudson's, and this was across the street from the big house. That's the blue, it's a Craftsman, it's very cool. Sybil and Bob lived there for a long time, and that also was the anchor piece. But Wilson knows, I walk around the lake. That's what- But yeah, I always sort of wondered about this stuff. Is that you?
Yes.
That's you. This is Drummond Reed's house, 1925.
Where's that?
It's on the lake, 12230 for us. And it's a cute little house. And this is David Ernie's house. This is on the other side of Densmore. As you come around the corner from 122nd, that was 1927. And then that is Chris and Susan, who are next door to Susan. That's 1928. This is, I'll call it Homestead. They're the new owner. That was the last goodbye on the lake. That was 1929. Everybody looked at it, because how much was it, Kyle?
Listed for $579, I think we ended up taking less than that.
But what year?
Horrifying.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
I know.
They had pickles from the 1970s in the basement. My cleanup crew, when we took it to the dump, they were throwing them across, and the dump guys were like rooting us on. It was
She was a lovely woman who got a little demented, and she was pretty dirty. She had National Geographics to the 40s. She had yarn. She had, what was that? How much? $5,000 in a coffee can?
$5,000 in a coffee can in a laundry basket that my workers moved for 4 days until the person was like, "Hey, I took that laundry home, found the money," but she told them, "If you find it, I'll split it with you." And they were high school football players. It was great. It was really fun. That was a fun week. But they've done an awesome job.
They got a beautiful remodel.
Right,
And
it's right next to the church. It's the property directly next to the church.
Right. But it's a beautiful remodel. It's nice. Melinda, what?
Could you go back to the Mary's house for a moment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, my husband's Dale, right? You're down there. His grandparents, or his mother was born in that house.
Wow.
She was born in that house in 1915.
1915.
Yes.
Tax records say 27, but I could be wrong.
Well, it's wrong, because I mean, she knew, when his eldest aunt was at our house for the memorial thing, she walked over and identified it right away.
Wow.
And they used to have a tent in the backyard and they were building it. They had 6 kids.
Wow.
But his mother was the youngest, and she was born there in 1950.
Wow. Well, the tax records had it 17, so that could be. I'm giving it my best shot.
Oh, I'm sure you did. But we were told it was the second oldest in Howard Lake.
Well, it would be, because, the 15 was the first couple, so that if it was 15, it's right in there.
Right. I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, fun. Thank you. All right. That's Homestead. This is the Wilson House. It's 1931, Dutch colonial. And the cool thing about this one, and it's a beautiful, beautiful house. The next picture shows, you see this rock waterway? It's still there. There's a picture of it on the back table. That was the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, built that in the 30s, which was something that FDR did to put men to work, young men to work during the Depression, and they made $30 a week. But they came up, for whatever reason, they built that there. It's very cool, and it still looks like the picture back there, which is very fun. I found the picture in the Wordland.
So it runs through a few properties or?
No, but John Lehman said their bulkhead may have also been built by the CCC because it sort of matches.
I don't know who builds it.
Right.
Now we have a moat.
Where does it go from?
It just doesn't really go anywhere. It just sort of comes in from the lake and just sort of
Oh,
goes.
okay.
It doesn't even go back out to the lake, I
Yeah.
don't think.
Huh.
But it's on the opposite side of the lake that we're on.
So it just dead end.
It kind of dead ends, but it's cool. It has a little bridge over it.
So it goes up and down, like it's low in the summer.
I'm sure it's probably empty in summer, would be my guess. So this was the Bosman house, and it is kind of a big brick thing, and actually my father's first wife grew up in that house. And they were high school sweethearts across the lake, but then they sold the lot in front in the 68, which is where Patterson's live now. And it's a cool house, and during the war, her horse was in the front yard. And there's a letter from when my brother died, I found this letter that his mom had, that she would write to my dad and say, every time so-and-so goes out in the boat and starts shooting, the horse looks up. There was a problem with people hunting on the lake and endangering other people's lives. It was quite an issue. So that's in our archives.
What they were hunting.
This is the house. Let's see, is this the one? Is this the room? Yeah. This is the house. It's not on, it's 128. It's a little here, but it's big and it's brick. And it doesn't fit in to the neighborhood. It's right back here. And it's big and it's kind of fancy. And I always wondered, why is that house there? Because it really doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. It was moved from the freeway. Oh, but how do you move a big brick house with a basement, 2 stories? But they did. The freeway opened from Northgate to Everett in 1965. So, and there's another house on 122nd that's also a freeway move, a brick was Z-bar. So, but that would be quite a thing to do that. So that's why I always wondered why it didn't fit in. And it did. This is on Corliss at 12539. This was when we were kids, that was the little store. And it was the coolest little store. And the gal lived there, and you go in and you buy your Beatles records, the singles, for 99 cents. And when you bought 9, you got the 10th one free. And they had penny candy, and they had cake mix, and they had milk and cigarettes. My husband thinks he got us a pack of smokes there before. So that's what it looks like now. And Bob is the son of the woman that had the store, and they literally lived above the store. And this is what it looked like in about 1961. So you get that. There's a picture of Koshelak's daughter in about 1961 in front of a little store, and it was cute. It was really a sweet little store. There it is, and it was cute. And it said the little store, and you had a sign, and there's probably 8. And it was just cute, but then 7-Elevens came along and put them out of business.
Was that Karen Bush?
No, yeah, that's Karen Koshelak.
Daily 7:30.
Okay, this is my next door neighbor, Lang. That was the Lang house. And Rob is here and Marcy. Their dad bought this lot in 1934 for $1,400, $100 down, to at least $25 a month. And is the paperwork in there?
Yeah,
It's after. So they actually, after Rob's mother died in 2007, they built a new house on the lot. It's absolutely gorgeous. Paul Moon, the architect, and it's beautiful. But Rob and I have been neighbors our entire life, other than he lived in China. When you build that up,
Yeah.
it's just gorgeous.
Oh, that's it.
It's beautiful, right, and then Dan Downey's house is right over there. And that was the Lagerstroms, so the Lagerstroms and the Langs were brother and sister. So once more, a little bit of a family compound. And this is their paperwork for as long. But that's how you did it, you know, you just wrote it on and crossed them off as you paid. Really fun. This is a cute little house over on Corliss, 12227 Corliss, that was 1939. And it's cute, yeah. Pretty cute. This is across from the church, 1940. But this is a famous architect, Elizabeth Eyre, was the first woman to graduate from University of Washington Architecture School in 1919. And she was very well known. She built houses in Capitol Hill, the Highlands, Queen Anne, beautiful formal homes. And my Aunt Mary's mother was a woman builder in the 60s. And Elizabeth Eyre was her mentor. So she built houses, and Steve Rice is here. He's living in one of my aunt's houses. She kind of emulated Elizabeth Eyre, and had really cool touches like the light switches where your hand is. And there weren't square corners, they were rounded a little bit. So she built a nice house. She built about 6 houses around the lake.
Hair or your?
You're my aunt, including the Leonard. That's Markworks and the Wileys. That was Wileys is here. That was Markworks, but now they're both Wileys, and the Beanas are right here. Right, and that was built, those were built in the 40s.
And where's that?
That's right across the street, right over here.
Is that near where the, like the tree house?
Yeah.
Across,
Yeah.
Oh.
no, did
Three
one
up
of
from
them,
it. The treehouse is right next to the public access. If you continue around the lake, it's about 3 over.
Okay, perfect.
okay, this is, yeah, there's the Wileys.
The shortest upstairs in his house.
And a bit of a low upstairs.
And John Wiley is. The
John
guy-
Zook.
John Zook is 7 feet tall.
It is.
Yeah.
Still too tall to
That's, Tom's house, that's on
sit through
Corliss.
each stand.
And that's been remodeled extensively, but that's 1943, and has a professional gardening company, so that's why his yard always looks so beautiful. Yeah, garden.
Okay.
That is that your house? This is it was the Herzog house, and it was built in 47?
46.
46, okay, 46.
It had the big
And that-
arch
that-
up at the road for years, had the big white.
The big
curve
white
up.
Herzog sign across it, the 6-way stop on 125th. And Corliss. These are just 3 houses of Corliss that were all built in 47. So as the times change, you can see the houses go a little bit more to brick, a little bit more. And now we're coming into this is Harkness. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about Lovell was a builder. Elwyn Lovell built houses in Seattle starting about 49, and he built them through the 50s. And they were a solid, well-built little house, 1,400 square feet, 4 bed, 2 bath, 1 bath, 4 2-bedrooms down, and then a very steep staircase. And then they had Knotty Pine upstairs. And Nicole lives in one. I'm using her upstairs picture. This is Harkness's. That's the upstairs. So they're really cute. They were tight, and he built 400 a year. He had a whole crew, he and his dad.
All together.
And all in Seattle, but go back just for a minute. Here, Randy's dad, Harry Harkness and Doris, bought this house brand new in 1950. They paid $8,000. Harry was a veteran, so he got the VA, the GI Bill passed in 44. He got to use the VA benefit was 0 down payment on a house. Still today, you can get a VA loan for 0 down. At the time, the interest rate was 3% in 1950. So their payment was $47 a month. Harry worked at Boeing. Boeing paid in 1950, 75 cents an hour. So Harry was knocking back 30 bucks a week. So a $47 mortgage payment is very typical today of about 40%. And that's not taxes or insurance, so they were a lot cheaper. But that's how much you know, it's all relative. And you think, how do these kids ever buy these houses? But that's pretty crazy, but he built 400 a year, and there's probably 15 around the lake. This is okay, the next one is Burke Avenue. This is in just 1950, the builders all of a sudden started buying up full blocks and building houses. So Burke is a development of 12 houses, 6 on each side, very identical. They were small, 3-bed, one. What's your square footage? You got a basement.
We've got a basement, so there's the 12 houses, and you could get the standard house
With no basement.
with no basement. You could get a basement for an additional 1,000,
Do you know how much they were to begin with?
10,000 to
10,000.
start, a
Okay.
basement for another 1,000, brick for another 1,000.
Oh,
Or if you wanted
upgrade.
the circular floor plan, so
Right.
you could go, that was another 1,000.
okay, because Angelo's had the circular.
Yeah,
And they were more expensive than the Levels, which
so
is,
yeah, our
yeah.
house was 12 grand when it was built.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow. And but that was, and then as you go down 122nd, you got the blockers, and they were all built in 1950. Kippy Street, 1950, you know, that was
Yeah.
all what they were doing then.
28, 120.
And it just all of a sudden went crazy
yeah.
about
Again,
that.
who was the company who built this?
You know, I don't know, Peter, I don't know who the builder was. You know what
Right.
you're on? Oh,
My aunt's former house in Edmonds had basically had the basement variation.
same,
of this.
right, yeah, they built them a lot all over.
Yeah.
There is another,
Yeah,
yes,
there's another group of houses with the same plan.
Right.
Across from Ingrid.
right, that was very, you know, all of a sudden, the 50s and 60s, they took off. And that was the Jaeger's house that's over on the lake next to here.
Okay,
But we're trying
more
to
time.
get the theory house.
sorry guys.
We on 128. About 1757 is a modern house that the architect is Paul Theory. Paul Theory was the father of modern Pacific Northwest modernism. He did the Seattle Center, he did some of the buildings in the center, he did Northgate Elementary, which was one of the reasons people didn't want to tear it down, but it's so bad. It wasn't his best school. But this house is very cool. Really,
It was just so well said.
I know. So that's Jaegers, and he grew up,
Graduate of Berkeley Elementary.
right. And this is the last one. This is Stendhal Place. This was the first condominium in the neighborhood. Started in 82. Last unit sold in 86. And we have the woman here whose husband bought it in 86. Back there, Karen. And they paid 156 in 1986 for that. And they're selling in the 8s now. But they're very nice units, very nicely kept. So that was like the first condominium development in this neighborhood. And the other, one of the early condominiums is Northgate West over by the freeway or on First.
What year was that?
That was 76. And that was just really the infancy of condominiums. They had just sort of started back then.
Where was this?
That's Stendhal Place. It's on 120th,
Near
next to the hospital.
Between the
So you
hospital
got in the cemetery.
You go down the back side of the hospital and just keep
Right.
going, you're right.
and you're right.
It's right there. So that is what I got. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what's coming next?
Your guess is-
I have a question.
Debbie.
It has something, you know how we have the new proposal for the zoning?
The one Seattle plan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I live over here, but I'm afraid that I'm gonna sell my house in the near future. And do I have to sell to a developer?
No.
Can you say, do they have to tell you that they're developers?
Most of the time, you'll see that the line I use all the time is, this is a young couple and this is Bulldozer LLC.
But they have to tell you that.
They don't have to tell you.
You pretty
but
much
no-
tell
but
by-
No builder is gonna put their own name on a contract. It will always be an LLC or a corporation. No builder is gonna write you a letter. No builder is going to spend 3 hours in an open house looking where they're putting the Christmas tree.
Right.
The builders that come and the agents of the builders that come will not be engaged, and then they will put a number out. And then they'll want something called a feasibility study, or they'll want something that is a little bit more of a open-ended inspection, because they're not inspecting the house, they're inspecting the dirt. So what I have always felt, 22 years in the business, selling, I mean, I was giving Mary crackers, like sold that one, sold that one, sold that one, I went through this thing because my mother's provides for me. It's the greatest promoter of all time, right? You're Barlow and Bailey's, I'm the elephant. You can price your house the way you want it. Builders will tap out at a certain price. So, and I had this conversation,
That's right.
Celeste is here, so I met with a couple people who were in the room this week. You always price it just a little bit more than the dirt, and somebody will come and get it. We sold the one on the corner here, 128 to Meridian's under contract. She went to Ingram, he's 30, they intend to live there. If at some point they decide, fuck it, let's develop the thing, you can't slap their hands for that, but you, as your choice of who you want to sell to, you absolutely can. But if a builder offers you $300,000, take it.
Yeah,
Because
my son's a
Yeah.
realtor too, and he says, Mom, if somebody comes in and offers you a whale of a lot.
you sign it, you sign it.
Right, you're supposed to buy the paper, not the people.
But the truth is, the builders, after they all got cooked in 07, 08, 09, 10,
Fair enough.
they're terrified of it, because we watched, and we were representing them in Linwood, we watched half of them go out of business.
Yeah.
Because they overextended and they got with their hearts of like, hey, you're gonna do this. I mean, the story I always tell, Fred Musk was at the office. We were pregnant with her, and he said, oh, God, Kyle, you got that new baby coming. You're gonna buy one of these houses. I said, I'm not gonna pay this much to live in Bothell. Are you kidding me? And he went stark white. He's like, well, why did we just spend that much on the dirt? And that was June of 07.
Wow.
So the builders are very hesitant to it. But with this middle zoning, what's happened on Meridian, what's happened with this infill zoning, what's gonna happen in 122nd across the street from us is it's gonna be big building, attached building, data. That's what the city wants.
So back up, what did you say?
It's 3 for 1. It's a big
No,
building.
I mean,
On the one that for 2.8 million that's across from the church, the big 3/4
oh,
acre piece.
yeah, oh,
Is
yeah.
gonna be slammed full of houses.
Oh.
And
so
it's
they're
a
gonna-
combined house with a main house and an attached unit and then a detached unit. It's what you see on Meridian.
Yeah, I know they,
It's-
on 130.
They're going everywhere.
They're
That's
going
what they
everywhere.
want us to build. So if you want to stay in the neighborhood, have someone build you that and live in the dad and sell your front 2 houses.
I know, my son mentioned that.
Absolutely.
And the cities, is it
But
as
so,
Sure.
the only
Yeah.
reason I'm saying that is that a lot of us are worried about what's gonna happen to the lake, but if you do have a chance to say no to a developer, and they have to be honest about it, if hopefully they are, and like you said.
you can tell,
You'd see them coming, usually. Like I said, you should be able to.
because you don't see them coming. That's right.
Well, that's true. But I mean, I just don't, and maybe it's foolish because I just spent $1.2 million on building a house on top of the lake and we're not going anywhere with. But I don't think everyone's gonna be like, hell of it, tear it all down, let's build apartments. I just don't think that's what our neighborhood is going to do. It isn't how we fit.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, if you'd have told me they're putting row houses on the backside of 120th, at the backside of the hospital, I'd be like, oh, no way, City won't let you do
And
that.
the city is vested in this because the piece on Meridian with 9 houses now went from a tax base of about
Yeah.
17,000 to 90,000 a year. That's how much they're getting taxed from those 9 houses
But I don't ever see it becoming,
overnight.
well, it's never gonna become Capitol Hill. It's never gonna become Queen Anne. It's never gonna become 6 stories and foot shops and it's just, that's not what it's going to be here. We don't have the infrastructure for it. And I think we have the appetite.
Right.
We don't
And it's- it's-
Well, you guys will. Well, I won't, but you can. All right,
Absolutely.
okay, all right. Bill,
Oh, Shawn.
I feel so lucky to live here.
Oh, sorry, we have a question from a Zoom member.
Okay,
Why were Ashworth Avenue and York Avenue truncated?
dead ended.
Yeah.
Because Burke was open until the hospital went in. The hospital went in about 1962, 3.
Yeah, right around, we were just riding our bikes.
We were riding our bikes there, it was just woods. So when they put the hospital, and that was the deal with Burke, well, you can do it, but you gotta dead end it. And then Ashworth, and Randy's not here, so I don't quite know, Ashworth, the dump was right there where the Bellavia's was the dump. And I don't know why they did that, really, but it's just traffic. It never went through,
Mom built two houses there and she
Right.
kind of
never went through,
forced them to put a street in there. She built the house.
Okay.
And they had.
and there was no street in there.
And our little Harkness Park, I have to put in kudos to
The Kippy
Kippies and me.
and you, it's beautiful. You guys have done such a good job.
I'm thinking, I've got. We named that park, the city has not accepted that as Harkness Park.
But that's,
Kippy and I decided, after chatting with the neighbors, name it after Doris Harkness, because she was the longest living resident. And she lived at Harkness Park until she was 90, or Harkness on
on
Ashford.
Ashford, but she was also a 60-year member of the club.
She was
She was fabulous.
95 years old, I think.
96, she was
96.
fabulous, sharp, fun, never seemed old, you
Yeah.
know, and she just was really cool.
She was-
So, all right, well, thank you so much, everybody.